Imagine there is an invisible cord inside you. No one can see it. No one can touch it. But you can feel it is still there. Every step you take, it pulls you back. Every time you want to move forward, it tightens, as if to remind you that you cannot go any further. Even when you believe you have escaped the old and familiar, that cord keeps you standing in the same place. It doesn't hurt you in a way that's obvious. It works quietly, persistently, like a piece of memory rooted in you long before you understood what freedom was. And then, one day you realize the source of that cord is tied to the image of the person who brought you into this world. Have you ever asked yourself, even after blaming your mother, even after trying to forget old wounds, you still feel trapped like this? Maybe you have told this story in your mind hundreds of times. You remember every detail, every look, every word, believing that naming the cause of your pain would set you free. Yet, as time passes, everything outside may change, but inside, you are still in the same place. Why, the truth is, what holds you back is no longer the flesh and blood person you call your mother. What binds you is the image of her in your mind. That image does not age with time. It does not change with reality, but stays exactly the same, unshaken. Like an invisible statue, it slips into your thoughts, your choices, your relationships. You don't need to see your mother or hear her speak to feel the influence of that image. It is in your eyes when you look in the mirror, in the feeling that rises when you are rejected, in the way you treat yourself. The most dangerous part is Dandokuta. You don't realize you're living with a shadow, not a real person. You think you've grown up, that you've escaped the past. But each time you try to change, each time you stand before a new door, that shadow appears. It reminds you that you still owe something. It speaks in a voice you know too well, sometimes gentle, sometimes harsh, but always enough to make you stop. And you obey without even asking why. How many of your life's decisions truly come from your own will? And how many come from the fear of defying that shadow? How many times have you chosen the safe road not because it was the best, but because it made you feel you weren't betraying anyone? How many times have you abandoned what you longed for because of a guilt you couldn't even name? When you see this, you realize you've spent your adulthood reacting to an image that does not exist in reality. Yet in your mind, it is more alive than ever. It is the mold, the ruler, the wall you unconsciously built as a child. And ironically, the harder you try to escape, the stronger it pulls you back, because you are fighting something without a physical form. How can you win a battle when the opponent isn't even there? This is why so many people remain stuck, repeating the same story. They think they are trying to change their relationship with their mother, but in truth, they are trying to repair an archetype deeply etched into their subconscious. And that archetype will not disappear on its own. It survives because you keep feeding it with memories, with emotions, with repeated choices. It may sound cruel, but you need to know this. If you don't face it and call it by name, you will keep living under the control of an image instead of owning your life. So, what exactly is that shadow? And how can it silently control every step you take, even when you believe you are free? The room in your unconscious. Deep in your mind, there is a room. You have carried it with you for as long as you can remember. So long that you no longer recall the last time you truly felt you stepped out of it. No matter how far you go, how much you change, this room remains exactly the same. It isn't built with brick or cement. Its structure is made from glances you once longed for but never received, from words that were never spoken, from silences so heavy they carved themselves into your bones. It is the place where unmet needs still live, where unacknowledged emotions still breathe. You might believe you left that room when you grew up. But the truth is, you never really stepped out. Physically, you left. Emotionally, you stayed. Carl Jung had a name for what this room holds: the mother complex. It's not just a psychological term, it is an invisible prison, one that doesn't exist in the outside world, but in the way your inner world was formed. The bars of this prison aren't made of metal. They are built from unspoken rules you never questioned, from a silent yet judgmental voice, from a constant need for approval that follows you like a shadow, and from an emptiness that nothing seems able to fill, no matter what you achieve or who you love. The mother complex isn't about your mother as a person. It's about the archetype she represents, the very first figure of love, safety, and belonging. When that archetype becomes distorted, it turns into a shadow that clings to everything you do. That's why you may feel judged even when no one is watching. That's why you might crave recognition even after working harder than most. That's why you may keep chasing new goals, only to find the satisfaction you seek never comes. And here is the most unsettling part. The door to this room has never been locked. It opens from the inside. So why haven't you tried stepping out? Why, after all these years, do you still hold on to it? Maybe because this room feels familiar. Even if it suffocates you, it feels safe in its own way. And human beings are drawn to what is familiar, even if it is what hurts them. Maybe you've convinced yourself that if you decorate the room with success, with love, with new relationships, the walls won't feel so close. But no matter how you change the way it looks, it's still the same room, the same air, the same walls closing in. The first step to leaving is not to run, it's to admit where you are. To acknowledge that this is not simply how life is, this is the mother complex at work. Once you see it for what it is, you can never unsee it. You begin to notice its traces in your decisions, its shadow in your relationships, its voice in your inner dialogue. And that awareness is the beginning of freedom. But awareness also brings a harder question. If the door is open and you can leave at any moment, why do you stay? What are you afraid will be lost once you step outside? Because leaving the room isn't just about escaping its walls. It's about stepping into an unfamiliar world where you can no longer blame the room for your life. It means carrying your own weight without the excuse of those invisible bars. And for many, that is more frightening than being imprisoned. So ask yourself now, the door is open. It opens from the inside. Why haven't you walked through it? Recognizing the emotional prison is the first step. But walking out, that is a choice only you can make. Perhaps that's why we hold on to it, even when it's the very thing that's suffocating us. When the image replaces the person, there is a truth that is hard to accept. You are not truly living with your real mother. You are living with a version of her that exists only in your imagination. This version is not the flesh and blood person. It is pieced together from fragments of memory, from moments of absence, from promises that were never kept. It was fed by needs that were never fulfilled when you were a child, and it carries the distortion of wounds that were never named. You remember a distant look and call it rejection. You remember being left alone and call it a lack of love. You stitch these scattered fragments into what seems like a complete portrait, but in reality, it is the portrait of a psychological mother, not your actual mother. The danger is that you react, you respond, and you live your entire life according to that image, not according to the real person. with all the light and shadow she carries within her. When you love someone, you seek a feeling that the mother in your imagination once denied you. When you work, you strive for the recognition that image never gave you. When you try to set boundaries, you feel yourself trembling because that image once convinced you that love means giving up everything. Are you sure you are truly loving, or are you just waiting for someone to come and fill a void from the past? Are you giving your affection to the person in front of you? Or are you unconsciously hoping they will become the version of your mother you once dreamed of? When the image replaces the person, you will never truly see them. You will only see through the lens of the past. And in that state, every relationship, whether romantic, friendly, or professional, becomes a replay of the same old script. Your real mother is a human being, with limits, with her own wounds, with stories you may never have known. The mother in your mind is a psychological creation, shaped from emotions, memories, and incomplete pieces. When you recognize the difference, you finally have the chance to connect with reality. You are no longer trapped in the spiral of an old story. And only then can you truly choose how to live. But if all of it is just an image, what happens when you break it? The invisible vow. There is an invisible vow that many people carry their entire lives without ever realizing it. It is not written on paper. No one speaks it out loud. Yet it exists like a mark carved deep into the subconscious. That vow says, "I will not live a happier life than my mother." It may sound irrational, but look closely at how you live. Have you ever felt yourself getting close to a moment of success, a moment of complete happiness, only to suddenly hesitate? Have you ever achieved something, but instead of enjoying it, felt uneasy, as if you had gone too far beyond the place you were meant to stay? That is when the invisible vow speaks. It's not a clear sentence. It's a vague yet powerful feeling, like a cord tied with a love that has been misunderstood, a love that whispers if you live freer, happier, or more successful than your mother, you are betraying her. The problem is, this feeling doesn't come from logic. It's not something you think. It's something you feel, and you've been feeling it since you were very young. Back then, you saw yourself as inseparably connected to your mother, what she experienced, what she believed. The limits she carried, these all became part of how you defined yourself. And somewhere deep inside, a part of you promised, "I will not leave you behind." So when you are about to achieve something your mother never had, when you are about to step into a freedom she never touched, your subconscious pulls you back. You might call it self-limiting. You might call it self-sabotage. But at its core, it is loyalty to that invisible vow. Ask yourself, how many times have you stopped just before reaching what you truly wanted? How many times were you on the right path, only to find a reason to turn away? How many times have you chosen the smaller, safer road because you were afraid of going too far? The irony is, you think you are protecting your love for your mother, but in reality, you are protecting her limits and trapping yourself within them. True love is not shrinking yourself to fit inside someone else's frame. True love is allowing yourself to grow to your fullest and, through that, inspiring others to do the same. If you dare to look this truth in the eye, you will see loving your mother does not mean staying where she stopped. Loving her means surpassing her. Not to prove you are better, but to complete the part of the story she never got to finish. Because if you truly love her, you will want to break the limits that once held her back. You will want to live a wider, freer, happier life, and in doing so, you are setting both of you free. But to do this, You must have the courage to cut the cord of the invisible vow. You must accept that surpassing your mother is not betrayal. It is a form of honor, because the greatest gift you can give to the one who gave you life is to live that life fully. If you truly love her, you must do the opposite. Loving your mother means surpassing her. There is a truth few people dare to face. Surpassing your mother is not only about setting yourself free, it's about setting her free as well. When you make yourself small, you don't just lock yourself inside an invisible cage, you unintentionally keep her there too. Because the bond between you is not only blood, it is energy. It is the shared story passed from one generation to the next. If you do not change, that story repeats. And your mother, whether she speaks it or not, will still see herself in that repetition. You may think that staying beside her within old limits is a way to love and protect her. But in truth, it only prolongs the very things that once caused both of you pain. True freedom does not come from standing still together in the dark. It comes when one person dares to step outside and bring the light back. Imagine your mother handing you a flame. She gave it to you not so you would keep it exactly as it was, but so it could burn brighter, spread further. If you hold that flame tightly in your hands, afraid the wind will blow it out, you will never know the warmth and light it can bring. But if you dare to let it grow, if you let it light up the sky, you not only make your own life radiant, you also let your mother see that the flame she gave you is still alive, still shining. Do you dare to believe that your progress is the greatest gift you could give her, that every step you take further, stronger, is proof that what she gave you was never in vain? Surpassing your mother is not about denying her. It is about completing the part of the story she never had the chance to write. It is about turning the page to a new chapter where the old limits no longer bind you. It is about transforming the pain you once carried into wisdom, so you not only live differently, but you live better, deeper, more fully. When love becomes evolution, it is no longer bound by guilt or fear. It becomes an open current where both you and your mother are freed from the narrow frame life once imposed. But this is only half the journey. Because surpassing the shadow is not only about changing your place in the story, it is about learning to live without that shadow leading you, and that requires going even deeper. But surpassing that shadow is only half the journey. When you abandon yourself, there is a kind of prison more cruel than the invisible vow. It is when you become the warden of your own life. And the most frightening part is, the warden's voice sounds exactly like your mother's. As a child, you knew the pain of being abandoned. Abandoned in the moments you needed to be heard. Abandoned in the moments you needed to be protected. Abandoned in the silence that made your young heart shrink. But as you grew older, instead of finding a way to heal, you learned to repeat that very act toward yourself. You blamed yourself for every mistake. Instead of allowing yourself to be wrong and to learn again, you pushed yourself to exhaustion just to prove your worth, instead of recognizing yourself as someone who is already trying. You sacrificed your own needs to please others, then waited for them to make it up to you, something that rarely ever came. And here lies the most painful twist. No one is hurting you, except you. You have absorbed and internalized the judgment, the demands, and the criticism that once wounded you, then used that same voice to control yourself every single day. You have become the second version of the person who once caused you pain. You continue the cycle of abandonment, not from the outside, but from within. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, if you treated someone you love the way you treat yourself, would they stay? If the answer is no, then it's time to face the truth that you are maintaining a toxic relationship with yourself. Because when you abandon yourself, you send out a silent message: I am not worthy of unconditional love. And that message seeps into all your relationships, making you more willing to tolerate indifference, more likely to forgive hurtful behavior because you have grown used to it. Breaking the cycle of self-abandonment is not a single act. It is a process of relearning how to stay with yourself. It means refusing to repeat the cold voice you once feared. It means replacing it with a voice that can lift you up, show compassion, and allow you to be vulnerable when you need to be. This is one of the most important steps toward freedom. Because if you do not change the way you treat yourself, then no matter how much the world outside changes, inside you will still be the same old prison with the same familiar bars. So how do you escape this warden? Becoming the inner mother. There is a truth few are ready to accept. No one is coming to save you because you are the mother you've been searching for. You may have spent your whole life waiting for someone to show up and give you unconditional love. Someone who understands you without explanation, accepts you without condition, stays with you no matter what. But you wait, and that person never comes. Because that person is you. Carl Jung once said, "What is not made conscious will control your life, and you will call it fate if you are not aware that you are searching for a mother outside of yourself. You will keep placing expectations on others to fill the emptiness inside. And in doing so, you will repeat the same cycle of disappointment again and again." Becoming the inner mother is not an abstract idea. It is a concrete act, a process of relearning how to nurture yourself in the way you once longed to be nurtured. The first step is to change your inner language. Pay attention to how you speak to yourself. If every time you make a mistake, you tell yourself, "I'm useless," you are continuing the role of the critic. Replace it with the words you would say to a child learning to walk. "It's okay. We'll try again. You are still worthy of love." The next step is to have a conversation with your inner child. Picture yourself at the age when your first wound appeared. Sit down, look into that child's eyes, and ask, "What do you need that you never received?" Then listen without judgment, without interruption. Just listen. After that, find a way to give that very thing to yourself today. Finally, set boundaries. A healthy mother knows when to protect her child from harm. You must do the same for yourself. Say no when something hurts you, even if others don't understand. Choose to stay where you are respected, and walk away when respect disappears. If you could go back to your younger self and hold them, what would you say? Would you reassure them that everything will be okay? Or would you promise that from now on, you will never abandon yourself again? When you learn to nurture yourself, you break the generational cycle, the silent passing of wounds from one generation to the next. You are not only healing yourself, but also preventing those wounds from flowing into the lives of those you love. And when you do this, you will realize the most important truth of all. Ending the cycle, beginning freedom. There is a moment when, once you reach it, nothing is the same anymore. It doesn't arrive with noise, fireworks, or applause. It comes in silence, but it holds the power to change the way you live for the rest of your life. It is the moment you become the symbolic father or mother of your own life. You are no longer the child led by an old shadow. You become the protector, the nurturer, the one who makes the choices for yourself. Living from lack means living in fear of loss. You choose a job because you're afraid of failure. You hold on to a relationship because you're afraid of being alone. You say yes when you want to say no, just to avoid losing someone's acceptance. Every decision made from lack is another way of abandoning yourself. Living from choice is entirely different. You choose work that aligns with your values and dreams. You keep relationships where you are truly respected and loved. You say no when something isn't right for you. And you say yes when your heart truly agrees. How would you live if you were no longer bound by the old story, if the past was just a chapter closed, no longer an excuse to limit your present? What would you do if every step you took was no longer pulled back by the cord of old wounds, when self-love is born from pain that has been healed? It's no longer a pretty idea to hang on the wall. It becomes a silent revolution. You don't need to prove it to anyone. Every decision, every glance, every step you take is proof enough. And then you realize freedom is not the absence of wounds. Freedom is living with them consciously so they no longer control you. Freedom is knowing you have ended a cycle, the cycle of repetition, of invisible limits, and begun a new journey where you are the one writing the script. If today, even a small part of you feels like you've stepped out of the loop, the journey has already begun. And it doesn't end here. There are still many layers of the story, many invisible cords waiting to be undone. Here, we will keep doing that. Not to find fault, but to find truth. Not to blame, but to set free. So if you want to keep going deeper into this journey, stay. Because each time you return, you will break another link in the chain. And one day, you'll realize you are completely free.